Mayor Lori Lightfoot attacking Kayleigh McEnany, accusing the White House press secretary of being a Karen after she called the mayor derelict over the surge of violence in that city. Here's McEnany responding on Watters World. That airs this weekend.
I'm very upset about the violence in the streets of her city. You know, she's focused on words, but instead she should be focused on actions. I understand the truth hurts. The president's written her a letter and offered her help, and she needs to take it.
And CNN's Jim Acosta getting slammed for taking the press secretary out of context. Acosta claimed McEnany said that the science should not stand in the way of reopening schools. But here's what really happened.
The science should not stand in the way of this. And as Dr. Scott Atlas said, I thought this was a good quote. Of course we can do it. Everyone else in the Western world, our peer nations, are doing it. We are the outlier here. The science is on our side here. And we encourage for localities and states to just simply follow the science, open our schools.
Jesse, tell me a little bit more about that interview with Kayleigh. What else did she say?
Well, she mentioned that Jim Acosta is the kind of guy that's a real jerk when the cameras go on, and then afterwards he's the nicest guy in the world. It's like the opposite of me. I'm like so nice on TV, but then I'm a jerk in real life.
I can vouch.
Yeah, Gutfeld can vouch.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think the mayor of Chicago needs to start caring a little bit more about her people dying, because that's the point here. It's funny how a lot of these liberal mayors were begging the president for all this federal aid during the pandemic. But then when black-on-black crime was surging and people's stores were being robbed and fires were burning, they didn't want any of the president's help all of a sudden. I think the memo went out to Democratic mayors that we have to refuse the president's help because the president is getting good press when that happens. So they'd rather stop the president from getting good press than stopping their own people being killed. It is weird, though, that she says, well, if he really wanted to help, he would, you know, make sure people that were on no-fly lists couldn't buy guns or do more background checks or ban assault rifles. Does the mayor of Chicago really think the people squeezing the triggers are on no-fly lists, or they're buying their guns legally, or that are really using AR-15s instead of handguns? The fact that we buy this line from her without challenging her makes you realize how corrupt this whole media deal is.
Well, Juan, it's also, I mean, it's really kind of worthless to just engage in this partisan bickering. And it's really easy for the mayor to say, oh, the president just needs to shut his face, because that's what Kate Brown said, too, in Oregon. But wouldn't it be a little bit better if some of these mayors actually came up of a list of things that they were doing and that they were going to put into place in the near future to make their cities safer, to make people, citizens there, feel better? Wouldn't you rather hear that from Lori Lightfoot?
Look, I think Kennedy, she's a local official. She was elected by the people of Chicago. She answers to the people of Chicago. And I would imagine they have demands and pressures on her, the council members, and all the rest, state officials as well, in trying to protect their citizens. I just don't see it as a federal responsibility. That's not the way our country is structured. We don't run in and tell local officials how to run their schools, how to run their police department, unless you want to make it a political issue. And with regard to Kayleigh McEnany, listen, I think that if you're the chief communications officer for the President of the United States, you need to be clear and precise in your language. Everyone knows the president wants schools to reopen this fall. So she can't start making the case by saying science should not stand in the way before she gets to citing a scientist and citing documents, because guess what? People are going to say, wait, you said science shouldn't stand in the way. And then she says, you took me out of context. No, I think she was not clear. She was not precise.
Even Jim Acosta's co-worker, Jake Tapper, said that he unfairly took her out of context. And by the time by the time he tweeted out a correction, he had already gotten 30,000 likes on that tweet. So that part of it is dishonest. And there are teachers, there are academics, there are scientists, there are doctors, there are parents, there are kids who want schools to open. So she's not alone in that. And that is not simply a political issue.
I'm not saying that.
As far as the cities, yes, the cities need to be run by the officials. Unfortunately, a lot of these cities we're talking about are being run into the ground. Greg, let's talk about the most important issue here,
Well, that's up to local officials.
Well, yeah, local officials are doing a bad job. They should be thrown out of office if they're doing a bad job. Greg,
Kennedy,
go ahead.
That's up to local voters.
Okay. Very good.
It's interesting that when there are bodies piling up, Juan says that's a local issue, but when it's a police incident, it becomes a national story that involves every single media outlet that causes protests and then later riots and looting. It's a global issue that affects England. But when there are bodies piling up in Chicago, it's a local issue. Mind your own business. Look, we saw with Acosta that Trump was right, that fake news is the enemy of the people. One of the most powerful statements since tear down this wall. And it's really good that we see this in action, because every day the public gets more and more red-pilled, that it's the media that is manipulating the news in order to create dissent so that they can get more clicks. And they don't just do this, by the way, to public figures like Kayleigh. If you've ever been the subject of a story, you know you weren't treated fairly, because there's always an inclination for a reporter to create a sensation out of nothing. You know, a beach without a shark attack is just a beach. So you need that shark attack. But I've got to tell you, finally, it is a joy to watch Kayleigh, because it provides a contrast. What you have on one side in the press corps are these whiny, petty dudes, right? Compared to this stoic Terminator shooting lasers made of facts into their dissonant brains is a positive joy for me. Makes my day every day.
And you can make your night tomorrow night by watching not only the Greg Gutfeld show, but also Water's World. And you can see that exclusive interview with Kayleigh McEnany. But the most important issue here, truly, Emily, is the abuse of the term Karen. Don't take Karen from us, because if you just throw Karen around in the wrong way, we don't get to use it and we don't get to enjoy it. And maybe that is the greatest miscarriage of justice. I appeal to you.
I rule affirmatively on that. Look, I'll just speak to Mayor Lightfoot's tweet. The whole watch your mouth, or what? Why doesn't she watch her town? The statistics coming out of Chicago are undeniable. 9 children have been shot to death under the age of 18 since June 20th. And she talks about being left alone, but the pandemic has exacerbated all of the stressors in those communities that are experiencing the most violence to begin with, right? Like unemployment spiking and infection rates and death rates. So for her to focus on this, to throw around Karen, to basically threaten Kayleigh, and then ignore her own town, which is rotting and festering, again, I think she should watch her residents. She should watch her children, and she should probably listen to those residents who are saying enough is enough.
Amen. I feel your frustration, and hopefully these leaders will tap into that, and they will at some point sprout a pair and lead.